Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It's our great pleasure to have you with us in another session to improve people and organizational excellence. Today we had, hopefully inshallah it will be a great meeting with our dearest colleague, Ms. Marcy McDonald. She is mindset strategist and empowerment coach. She will introduce herself after I finish the introduction. Actually, I've been discussing with Marcy for some time to come and benefit the people here with her experience and knowledge and proven strategies. So it would be great to have her with us today. This meeting comes to you from HR Leaders Kuwait with our mission to connect people sharing knowledge and experience to develop themselves and the organization. Actually, we started here in Kuwait, but now we are in the region and outside the region as well. We also comes from Tanmiya Consulting Group and HR Excellence Club and Quality and Excellence Middle East and Qatar School Middle East. I'm your host, Dr. Mohamed Rabie. I'm founder of HR Leaders Kuwait and Quality and Excellence Middle East and Tanmiya Group. I'm certified executive and team coach at Marshall Workplace, and had the honor to work in many reputable places like Vodafone, Egypt, Zain, Arthur Anderson, and Ministry of Finance here in Kuwait and Youth Investment Group. So it will be great to have Marcy with us today. So let's have Marcy with us. Marcy, please.
Well, let's see. There I am. Hello, everyone. This is an experience for me. I've never been to the Middle East. It has been on my to-visit list for about 30 years. So one of these days, hopefully I'll get there. If you're ready to begin, Mohamed, I'll go ahead and share the screen and start my slides. Are you ready?
Yes, please.
So as Mohamed said, I am Marcy McDonald. I change people's lives by showing them what to pay attention to, what to ignore, and how to do both better. Let that sink in. Most of us pay attention to the wrong things and we end up not being very happy as a result. Welcome to today's class, the focus formula, how to work less but get more done. I'm going to show you 3 very amazing strategies that are counterintuitive. I want you to be able to work less, get more done, leave your office sooner, have more time for the things in your life that really matter. Not that work doesn't really matter, but it's a balance of professional challenges and personal really living that is important to having a good life. When you use the tools that I'm showing you today, you're going to understand why your work days keep getting longer and longer, why you might be working nights and weekends, why your personal life could be taking a backseat to your work life. It's because, and why you always, despite that, pushing to do more, more, and more. It's because everything we're taught in today's work environment, no matter where in the world you are, pushes you to multitask, to work longer hours, even if it's not effective. So I want to kick off by talking about stress, mental and physical exhaustion. Do you know how many ways stress is showing up in your life? It could be present in more ways than you realize, and that's one of the reasons why it's so important to dig into this topic today. So I want to give you actually a stress test, not the kind where you jump on a treadmill, but one where we can just see how it's affecting you. So grab a piece of paper or pen, something that you can just quickly write down your answers. I'm going to list a symptom, and I want you to record a 1 for every symptom that you have. And at the end, we'll add up the numbers for a total score. So let's get started. 1.
Will you give us 1 minute so that people are prepared with paper and pen?
Yes.
So that if you like, we can get paper and pen so that you are ready to record your results.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Mohamed. I'm always surrounded by paper and pens, so I don't always.
That's why I'm here.
Yes. So just let me know when you're ready.
Okay, we can start.
Okay, great. So the first question is simply, are you getting tension headaches? So that includes, are you noticing throughout the day that you're getting tight neck and shoulders? If that's the case, score a 1. Have you stopped participating in activities with your friends and family? Maybe saying you'll join them, but actually ending up working late so that you come late to an event or you never even make it. Do you find yourself with a short fuse, getting angry, irritated, annoyed, or frustrated more easily than you used to? Are you what's called in America smack talking to yourself? That's being self-critical, judgmental, and negative in your self-talk. And by self-talk, I mean the things that you're saying to yourself in your head. Are you complaining more about your job or criticizing those around you more, whether at work or at home? Are you eating more to find some comfort in food because you're feeling so stressed? And if you're also turning to drinking, add another point. Are you sleeping poorly? Or on the other hand, sleeping way too long, longer than you need to? Do you have trouble saying no to new projects, even though you're already overloaded? Are you eating your meals at your desk because there's no time to stop working? And that includes even if you're working remotely from home. You run into the kitchen, get some food, and you return to your desk to work, or you drag your work to your kitchen table. Are you getting forgetful or having difficulty concentrating when you used to be super focused and maybe even prided yourself on how focused you were able to manage things? Are you getting sick more often? Are you making more mistakes and becoming less organized and more careless as you rush to get things done because you have too much to do? Are you procrastinating more than you used to, putting off big, complicated projects? Do you feel unmotivated or like you just don't care as much anymore to work the long hours, even if you're still doing it? And do you have so much going on that you sometimes feel like you don't even know where to start or how to get through it all? So quickly add up your score. I'll give you a second to do that. And when you get it done, put your score in the chat, and Mohamed, maybe you can read some of those off for me. Did anybody add up their scores?
We have 10, I have 15,
10?
10, 10, 15, 9, who else like to share his score, her score? 5. It's really great.
Good, good. Okay, if you've got a score of 0 to
13.
3, 15. Okay, great going. Even if you had a really low score, today's strategies will be helpful, but it doesn't sound like we have any really low scores. If it's 4 or more, then stress is affecting you in more ways than you probably realize. So you're in the right place to get help today. Let's start with the big picture. Overwhelm, overwork, stress, all these can actually be a killer because overwhelm equals stress in your body, not just in your feelings. It can raise your stress levels to the point where heart attack, stroke, and other stress-related illnesses become inevitable, not just a possibility, but something that is going to happen to you. Stress also compromises your immune system. And they got sick more easily and it took longer to recover from COVID than people who had more of a work-life balance in their lives. Why am I telling you this? It's because I want you to understand that the way you've been working is harming you physically, not just emotionally. It's taking a toll on you. So I want you to understand how important it is to make these changes and to be motivated to pay attention and try things we're going to do today. So the strategies I'm showing you today can help, but consistent application to these strategies is what will make them succeed. And even more, there's one factor that could affect your ability to make these succeed, but we'll get to that later. So this talk isn't just about improving your productivity, it's about reducing the role and hold that overwhelm has on you so that you can control your work days instead of having them, having them controlling you, which is what's happening according to those scores. As we dig into these productivity strategies, I want you to understand that you're not alone in feeling overwhelmed and overworked. Nearly 40% of all adults worldwide feel so overwhelmed and burned out they're thinking about leaving their jobs, even if it's something they enjoy doing theoretically. Also, 71% of adults are experiencing at least one and usually multiple of those symptoms we talked about earlier, as you all are, given the high scores that we saw. More than 50% of workers feel like they have too much work to do in an 8-hour day. And I'm not sure culturally if that statistic is different in the Middle East, but I'm betting that it is. So the stats are going to vary from study to study. But the point is that this is a common problem, and it often starts with unreasonable demands at work. And by the way, even if you're an entrepreneur, that still counts as having a job. And it counts because most entrepreneurs I know put way too much pressure on themselves because they're trying to wear all the hot hats in their company, not just whatever hat they might be assigned to in a corporate environment. What happens for most people is that the drive to work, the expectations of work get out of control, they escalate. And the more time you spend in that whirlwind of nonstop expectations and expectations without any boundaries, the worse you feel and the less effective you actually become. So it's not your fault if you ended up feeling frustrated and feeling like you're practically moving backwards the harder you're working. Let me take a quick second just to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a mindset strategist, I'm a coach, I'm an escapee from the corporate world. I shifted my life so that I can spend more time on the things that are important to me personally and professionally. I live in a little town in Arizona in the US. I'm looking out at mountains right now. And that's because I love to hike, I love to kayak, and basically I just love to be outside. So I've adjusted my lifestyle using these productivity strategies so that I have time to do all that. I'm also the creator of a book, Build Happiness, Change Your Perspective, Change Your Life. And I developed these 3-dimensional blocks called unblocks that you can write on, wash off, stand on, build with. They use neurological principles to help you shift how it is you're looking at yourself and your life and the things that you're doing so that you can make literal neurological changes to improve your life. I'm also a cast member of a TV show called 4 Days to Save the World, where I worked with a team to come up with a solution to end suicide worldwide. We had just 4 days to come up with a viable and marketable solution for how to end suicide that would work cross-culturally, and we did it. So talk about pressure, talk about trying to get a lot done in a very short time. It releases this coming July, by the way. So that's who I am now. But let me jump on the time machine to who I used to be. I used to be on the corporate treadmill. I worked for a company that was the leader in lifelong education at the time for adults. And we created high-end videos working with the top experts worldwide in their fields. And I absolutely loved this job until I started having to work 80 to 90 hours a week to do it. Was I overwhelmed? Was I overworked? Yes. By the time I get home from work, I'd really just pull off my shoes and fall into bed. But I was so stressed, I'd wake up off and on all night long, having arguments with my boss, thinking about things that I needed to get done, but hadn't gotten done yet. I was totally unable to rest. So the next day I'd be even more stressed because I'd be cumulatively more and more exhausted. The stress started to affect my health. My blood pressure went up, my weight went up. I was emotionally becoming very angry and bitter because every time I had a success, my boss claimed the success, but he gave me more work to do. So it was this endless treadmill. I lost all sense of purpose in a job that used to be the job I thought I would be at until I retired. So I was totally miserable. So I just want to know if this sounds familiar. So just throw a yes in the chat if you've ever experienced this kind of feeling where you're just working and working and working and you don't know how you're going to get out of it. So let me know if you've ever felt overwhelmed, overworked, frustrated with your job, any of those things. Do we have any yeses?
You were saying before that you don't know about the Middle East and the culture here. So this is a good test for the people here to tell you about their reflection about this. How many people feels the same? Please write in the chat box.
Yes, please give me a yes
same stressful.
or no.
Yes, because I believe this happens everywhere. Once you are in the treadmill and working in an organization which is highly demanding, so you will be putting a lot of efforts in this. So please share with us your opinion about this. So I think we can continue until people get to write in the chat box.
Yes, that's great. I have a feeling that given the answers at the beginning, that the answer is yes. Well, me personally, I had a massive wake-up call because I wasn't taking care of myself physically, and I ruptured a disc in my back. I had to have emergency surgery or else I was going to not be able to walk again. At that time, I was running 5 teams. I had a $10 million budget, but I had no choice. I had to take 3 months off. And you can imagine for the amount of hours I was working, how distressing that was. It was almost more distressing that I had to take the time off than I had to have back surgery. But I had to have 3 months off. And during that time, I was forced to think about my life. So I realized that I could do a lot of things differently. I started looking for and trying different organizational and productivity strategies. But I had to make a lot of personal changes too. I had to change my mindset. I was in my own way. I was used to working too much, never saying no, and staying in the office when everyone in the entire building had left. It's what I expected of myself, and it's what I expected of my team too. That was on me. So to be honest, the personal changes, the mindset changes are what actually enabled me to change my hours while up-leveling my productivity. That's what enabled me to stick with my strategies. So the number one thing I learned, which is tied to what we're going to dive in today, is that I was focusing on all the wrong things. Shifting my focus, both professionally and personally, because the two are absolutely integrated, led to a domino effect. I worked fewer hours, but I got more done. I prioritized what was meaningful, and I either let go of or spent significantly less time on the things that weren't as important. I started feeling good again as a result because I was more satisfied with what I was doing. And that enabled me to be more productive, which again increased my level of job satisfaction. And when I realized what my personal priorities were, I also realized, incidentally, that I'd fulfilled my purpose at my job and that it was time to leave. So I gave my notice and I started the journey that led to my becoming a mindset and empowerment coach. Along the way, because I was consulting on this kind of strategy, I learned a lot, I tried a lot, and I really figured out what to focus on and how to focus much more effectively. So my journey was a life-changing experience from stress, purpose, overwhelm, to in your life quickly, much faster than I did. Because I've already tested so many approaches, I know what works and I know what gets in your way. I don't want it to take you 7 years to figure this out. So I found that being overloaded at work is actually just the starting point for your life getting out of your control. It's not the end point, however. You have to dig into your personal challenges that led to those long hours, overwhelm, and burnout. So these are things like perfectionism, fear of failure, taking your meaning from work. And by that, I say that What I mean is you look at your job as the most important thing in your life. But at the end of your days, when you are before your maker, most people don't say, I wish I'd spent more time at the office. They say, I wish I'd done good, or I wish I'd loved more, or I wish I'd spent more time with my family. When you work insane hours, you tend to set all that aside and you take your meaning from how busy you are. Because of that, then you're having to prove yourself in your role all the time by working too many hours and saying yes to too many things. If you feel like maybe you're overworked right now because you have a bad boss, or it's a bad job or a bad work environment, and work and home always gives you a list of more and more things that you have to do. Mohamed, I know when we talked a few weeks ago, you were talking about the pressures of your consulting, trying to do your own work, and the family demands. And all those things together might make you feel like you don't even have time to work strategies that will be more effective. But while you can't control what's outside of you, you can control your mindset. And Mohamed, we talked about some of these things, scheduling it out, figuring out what's most important. So that's the kind of thing we're going to talk about. And here's my first strategy that's kind of a radical idea for a lot of people. And that's the idea that you can work fewer hours, you can get more done, work on fewer things, and have more impact when we use the strategy of deep focus. So what is deep focus besides my favorite productivity tool? Business writer Eric Barker called it, quote, the superpower of the 21st century, end quote. So let's dig in so I can show you exactly what he means. You can just nod or raise your hand. Have you read the book Deep Work, Rules for Focused Success in a Distracted World? What deep work is the idea that you pay focused attention to one activity at a time. And I bet if we took another survey, which we're not, most of you would say that you have more than one thing going on at any given time. But with deep focus, you only have one thing going on at any given time. Newport argues that the focused attention of deep work enables people to learn more quickly and stay super valuable as the economy shifts. It's what enabled him to write several books and spend less time working. Half the time he used to spend working, in his case. He also argues that whether you're an entrepreneur or you're part of a corporation, quote, to succeed, you have to produce the absolute best stuff you're capable of producing, a task that requires depth, end quote. Being able to do deep work makes you incredibly valuable. Most workers, unfortunately, even at a higher level of management, can only do shallow work. So what is shallow work? Shallow work is what we're doing most of the time if we're overwhelmed or unfocused. It's the work that's ending. It's usually performed while distracted. But even though it's I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. My internet kicked out.
Okay.
And yeah, so let me just share my screen again. How many projects are under your direction? Just think about it for a second. Do you have one project you're working on? Do you have two? Do you have five? Do you have 10? It was not unusual for me at my corporate job to have as many as 20 projects that I had under my direction at any time. How many projects are you directly responsible for? So there's what your team is doing, there's what you yourself have to do the work on. Is it actually possible to get all of them done in 8-hour days? If you work 5 days a week 40 hours a week? Could you get them done? Or are they always competing for your attention? So you give everything just a fraction of your time and a fraction of your brain power. How well do those things get done as a result? These are really important questions because the answer is probably that they don't get done that well, either by you or by your teams if you've got reports. And that can leave you feeling frazzled, frustrated, not to mention working later and later. But when you carve out time to really focus and you can actually make significant progress on a project, it will leave you feeling satisfied, calm, and in control, which is the opposite of how juggling too many things and too little time makes you feel, right? So the first benefit of deep focus is that when you narrow your focus on one or two wildly important goals, you accomplish more. And by wildly important, I mean the things that really move the needle and that only you can do. A second benefit is that you feel better about what you're doing. Excuse me, even though you're technically doing less, it's precisely because you are accomplishing something of merit, something wildly important, as opposed to all that stuff that requires shallow focus that really anybody could do. A third benefit is that a focused schedule with time off gives your brain and your body a chance not only to recharge, but also to improve your insights about whatever you're working on. So you can do it better, and doing it better leads to more satisfaction. A bonus benefit is that it reduces stress, so it has a helpful impact on your health, which then improves your energy. It's a positive feedback loop, win, 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 win. You have a finite amount of energy for directed attention. That's a fact. It's just how our brains work. And if you exhaust it, you get what's called attention fatigue. Trying to do a million things takes away from your ability to recharge that really critical thinking energy. If you ever felt totally empty at the end of the day, my guess is yes, that's why. Attention fatigue. Here's what really matters to us today. If you're truly able to focus, you'll do more in less time, which means you'll actually be able to shorten your workday. As Cal Newport says, quote, "A deep life is a good life," end quote. It's satisfying, energizing, and leaves you time for yourself and your relationships, and with a greater appreciation for the professional work you do. Now, as good as it sounds, and it definitely is good, changing your workday so you concentrate on deeply focused work is a challenge in our busy work world. That's why you need a plan for how to incorporate deep focus in your workday. You need to be able to determine what's truly important enough for you to work on, and you need to figure out how to offload or minimize the time you spend on the stuff that's actually unimportant in the long run. So that brings us to our second strategy. We combine deep focus with limiting your hours. This is called a fixed schedule productivity model. This is an amazingly powerful strategy. And after this session, I'll send a link to sign up. I'll put it in the chat for a PDF guide on how to do this. But I'm going to just give you the quick overview. Put simply, you declare that you're only going to work a set number of hours, and you leave the office when you reach that cap that you put on it. If you know you only have 8 hours to get anything done, you're forced to focus better and focus on the most important things. So limit your hours and narrow your focus. Don't be discouraged if it takes a while to hit your target number of hours. It takes determination, persistence, and it takes, in some cases, a culture shift so that you have to inform your team or your superiors that this is how you're restructuring your days. But you can do it. Look, I used to be the biggest workaholic on the planet, but now I work a focused 20 to 30 hours a week, max. And it doesn't matter how many projects I have. I drill down, I narrow my focus to the one most important thing. I put the things that are just support efforts into a very small window of my day, and I whip through them, but I give my best energy to my deep focused work. So let's look at a case study. This case study is from applying my strategies when I was still at my corporate job. I worked with this woman, Jennifer, a master of wine, who was given 2 months on a project that normally took more than 12 months to do. She was absolutely going out of her mind trying to figure out how to get everything done. So we boiled her life down to a very strict focused schedule, combining the two strategies. We calendared out everything that she had to do with deadlines, and we worked backwards from the last day when everything would be, when she would be delivering in the video studio, to day one, which was the day we were starting on, to figure out what must be accomplished each day and how much time she could allot to it. Remember, limited time, higher productivity. Unlimited time, lower productivity. So Jennifer went into deep focused mind, spending as little time as possible on non-essential tasks. How did she do? Well, she not only succeeded and got everything done by her deadline, she ended up creating a product that earned $1 million in gross revenue in its first year alone. Did she work her butt off? Yes, she did. But she got to the other side of the due date without working more than 10 hours a day. Before that, before I worked with her, she's been working 15 to 17 hours a day, but getting less done. Focus combined with a limited schedule was half of her success. The other half, the secret sauce that I alluded to at the beginning, was the work we did on her inner critic. So it's surprising to many people how much longer they make their days when they're emotionally distressed. But that emotional stress destroys both your focus and your productivity. So we redirected the energy she'd been putting into beating herself up, feeling frantic, feeling angry about the deadline, and a lot of other emotions, and aimed her energy at positive, steady, focused intention and amending her self-talk so that it was encouraging. Now, there's a great case TED Talk by a woman, Dr. Daria Long, who talks about how we can apply the idea of triage to our work life. So basically, she says that when we're overwhelmed by giant to-do lists and demands, we treat every single thing as if it has the same level of urgency. It's kind of like if you were in an ER and there were patients bleeding all around you and dying, and you're trying to decide what comes first, but you're treating it as every single case exactly the same. But we're not surrounded by people dying. It's not an ER situation. In reality, things have different levels of urgency and impact, but we tend to treat them as if they're all the same. So we have to start assigning levels of urgency to things, just like you would if you're working triage. There's another great book on this topic that I love. It's called The 4 Disciplines of Execution. If you've read it, great. If you haven't, go get it because it's fantastic. The authors say, quote, when urgency and importance clash, urgency will win every time. Basically, the more you try to do, the less you actually accomplish, end quote, which is not how we usually think of it. Now, the question I always get next is, well, how do I know what's wildly important enough to focus on? It's all important. And that's one of the things that leads us to putting in all those extra hours because we're viewing everything as the same level of importance. And you can reduce your hours and boost your productivity only if you realize that. You absolutely have to sort out what is worth focusing on if you're going to make a schedule productivity model stick. So there's a lot of systems for most version called the ranked list because it shows you what to focus on, how to focus on it, and for how long you should focus on it. This tool keeps you out of the whirlwind of everyday demands, those constant demands that make you pull your hair out and try to do too many things at once. It's all wrapped up in this one exercise. So what is a ranked to-do list? My version lists the tasks for the day or the week and layers on 4 factors to help you decide what to focus on first. And you can use this method for the day, for the week, a month. The goal is to break through overwhelm to a calm, organized, steady productivity by clarifying what's important enough to pay attention to, and also clarifying what to ignore or spend less time on. You can use the ranked to-do list to move through being stuck on those really big projects too, to figure out the individual steps and what needs to go first on those deep focus, deep work projects. So how does a ranked to-do list beat overwhelm? Well, when you feel overwhelmed, you get stuck knowing what to do first because it feels like everything's coming at you all at once. And there's that sense of undifferentiated urgency we talked about before. You don't know where to focus or how to get started. But when you create a ranked to-do list, you break through those feelings. It gives you perspective on what you should focus on. And this saves you both time and energy because you're tapping into the rational mind as well as the emotional mind. It counteracts analysis paralysis. The time you waste trying to figure out what's most important, but not actually being able to move ahead on anything is a huge time waster. So whatever your business goals are, there is always one most important thing on your list that will move the needle the most. Unfortunately, the things that don't move the needle at all or very little are typically the things that are sucking up our time, our energy, and our motivation, as we've been learning. So this process counteracts emotional overload because it's focused on following the steps in a logical way, developing the steps logically, following them logically. It clarifies where to start and why to start there. It showcases that everything isn't equally important. But when we're stressed, we have that feeling that everything is the same weight. Now we're going to apply a metric, a fact, a way of sorting it out for yourself, and thereby create a success path for yourself for getting the things done that truly matter. This ranking system spotlights where you should start and why, and that in turn reduces the feelings of stress and overwhelm, and it creates momentum. Have you ever felt like you had so much to do, you just didn't even know where to start? This helps you sort that out. This strategy typically takes under 15 minutes once you get used to it. I do it in about 5 minutes. I do it at the beginning of the week, and then each day I do it again. When I do it at the beginning of the week, it takes 5 minutes. Each day it takes me about 2 to 3 minutes. So I know exactly what are my priorities and what's the number one priority, what I have to do. And it's the perfect companion for the fixed schedule productivity model combined with the deep focus process. So we don't have time to walk through every step of this, but I want to give you a quick overview. So you want to get a giant piece of paper, or you can do this on your laptop, whatever works best for you. I like writing it out because it engages your brain in a very different way. You're going to create 7 columns and then just break out as many lines as you can fit in on the piece of paper that you have. You list all the items on your to-do list in the first column. Then you rank the level of impact on a scale of 1 to 10 in the second column. If it's going to be column, your level of expertise.
Sorry, Marcy, we have some problems with the voice. Hello, Marcy. Can you open the mic, please? Because we couldn't hear the voice. And we have to go again from the first column because the level of impact, you have not heard about the level of impact. Okay? You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, okay, great. Sorry about that. So did you hear the to-do list?
Yes.
All right, sorry, I'm on the other side of the world and in the mountains. It's bad for the internet. And then we have the level of impact. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how important it is, how much effect it's going to have. And if you think about your day as you work through it, and I I have clients often do a time tracking so they know where they're truly spending their time. A lot of the things fall under the category of 1 to 2 as opposed to 9 or 10. Then you look at your level of expertise on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the highest level of expertise. So I'm an expert in actually quite a lot of things, one of them being mindset, but another being the content that I create around mindset strategies and focus strategies. That's not something someone else can do, but there are things that I do on a weekly or daily basis that someone else could do. It doesn't need my same level of expertise. It needs a different expertise. So that might be a 1 or 2. Then you have your deadline. You need to look at, when is it due? Is it due in the next 24 hours? Is it due in a month? If it's due very soon, then it gets a 10. If it's not due for a long time, or if it doesn't even matter, it gets a 1. And you work out in between your scale from 1 to 10. Then you look at your level of focus. How much attention do you need to spend on it to really do it well? So when I'm writing this talk, for instance, that's a 10 regarding my level of focus. When I'm putting my daily post on social media, that's a level of 2. It doesn't take any time whatsoever. So I put my level of focus there in this column. Then I'm going to add up my total scores, going all the way across to come up with a total score for every single item you have. Then what you do is to come to your rearrangement, which is your ranked to-do list. So as you look at your total scores, whatever has the highest score, you're now going to be putting it at the top of your list. Even if it fell on number 22 on your to-do list, you now know this is the most important, requires the most attention. You've got to put this on the top of your list. If you've got 1 or 2 or even 3 things that all have the same score, then I suggest you break that out again and compare those 3 things just to each other using this exact same methodology. So let's take a quick look at how this helped one of my clients. So, see if this works. Yes. So Meg, she was an incredibly busy professional when I met her. She was a college professor. She was writing her dissertation. She was running her own business on the side. She just had a baby. And she had a husband who thought she needed to spend some time with him as well as on all her other things. So everything was coming at her all at once, claiming all her attention. Her ranked to-do list had to include personal and professional tasks. And we even put scheduled family time in there because it was a priority for her. We eliminated the time she was spending multitasking. And if I do a longer version of this talk, I include multitasking. We haven't talked about it, but just trust me when I say it's a huge time waster. We brought in the concept of deep focus, and we put her on a fixed schedule. So what happened when we put all these strategies together? Well, Meg was able to delegate or drop a lot of the work that she was doing as a teacher that wasn't actually necessary professionally. It wasn't actually helping her students that much, and it wasn't contributing to the things that she had determined were most important to her. Likewise, she made decisions about her own business, cutting it down from 4 days a week to just 1 day a week. Finally, she built in that weekly date with her husband, which improved their relationship and gave her some time to chill out. So since we worked together, she finished her dissertation. She has improved her marriage. Her child is growing up. She has a very balanced work-life situation, and she's a happier person. Bottom line, she did this all in under 40 hours a week, whereas before she was working 60 to 70 hours a week, but accomplishing much less and also being totally miserable and stressed out. But I'll tell you what made the most difference to her and to all the clients I've worked with besides these strategies. It was having someone help her see that stress she was going through and how it was affecting her life, which was that it was keeping her from thinking clearly being able to rest, or feeling good about anything in her life. Having an accountability partner and someone who's objective, who could analyze the situation in ways she couldn't, made a huge difference for her. So here's what we've covered today. First, we've learned that carving out time for deep, focused work actually enables you to get more done in less time, and more important things done in less time. Second, we learned that limiting your time forces you to be more productive in the time that you have. Excuse me. This is the process of fixed schedule productivity. Combined with deep focus, it amplifies your productivity and your effectiveness. And third, we learned how to figure out what's most important to focus on by using the ranked to-do list. When you use all these things together, these strategies can truly help you get more done in less time. And I love these strategies. I use them every single day, and I've used them since I was at my corporate job. Unfortunately, a lot of people try them for a few days or even a few weeks, and they like them, but then they kind of fall off the productivity strategy wagon because they haven't dealt with their emotional mindset, which is what got them in trouble in the first place. So I want to throw in just a little bit of bonus content. I'll look at two habits that typically get in the way of people being able to maintain these strategies. So these are the stress habit and the negative self-talk habit. You might not even be thinking of these as habits, but they are. And because they're habits, that means we can change them. They're automatic reactions right now. It's automatic as biting your nails or reaching for some chocolate. And both of these habits suck the energy out of your physical and mental well-being so that you're not able to continue with the strategies we've talked about. So let me give some examples of what I mean. Beating yourself up for not doing something better than you did, even if you actually did it well. Trying to control your emotions and not succeeding. Trying to be perfect when that's impossible. Maybe even feeling inadequate to the task or angry about the work you have to do. All these feelings keep even the most effective strategies from working because you're paying attention to them instead of just being in the present, focused on what it is you're intending to do. So you have to tackle these emotional knots before any of these systems will stick. In other words, to shift how you work, you also have to shift how you think, how you feel, and how you respond to any given situation in the moment. So personally, I used to set the example of working night and day, and I expected it from my teams too. And I never even noticed that they were miserable just like I was. But I didn't do them any favors by not having boundaries between my work life and my personal life. That's why I had to dig deeply into why I didn't have any boundaries and why I had expectations that no one, including me, could ever meet, at least not in a sane way. So these productivity strategies are tied to having a healthier life, both for you and for those you live with and work with. So you have to ask yourself, what do you want your life to really be like? Because if you don't ask yourself, and later each day and into your weekend. Are the products of your thoughts and emotions that you're creating for yourself. So let's talk about what you have been creating. How many hours do you work a week on average? Now, I'd love for you to throw that number in the chat. I'm not sure if anybody will. So I'm just going to take a guess. Over 40 is probably what most of you work. How focused are you on your most widely important goals on a scale of 1 to 10? What would that number be? So ask yourself this, even if you're not putting that number in the chat right now. These are really vital questions to you being able to build a work life and a home life that's satisfying to you and that's physically healthy for you. How much time do you spend with the people you love without being distracted by work, by messages, by emails, or just going on and around and around in a squirrel cage in your head, thinking of the things you have to do or the things you wish you had said to somebody. Do you give time every week to the things that align with your purpose in life, with the things you think are most important for you as someone who's been gifted with life? Arianna Huffington, the publisher, said, quote, "Don't just climb the ladder of success, a ladder that leads, after all, to higher and higher levels of stress and burnout, but chart a new path to success. The goal is not just to succeed, but to thrive." What's it going to be for you? To struggle or to thrive? I say take a stand for being successful in the workplace while also taking a stand for taking care of yourself. That's what I've done. That's what my clients have done. And it's the difference between night and day and how satisfying and stress-free both my work and my life are now. So I want you to apply these strategies today, but dig deeper so you can make these strategies sustainable, so you can break the stress habit and you can get your time and your life back. If you'd like some instructions for the fixed schedule productivity model, you can go to bit.ly work less, do more and sign up for it. I'll put it in the chat in just a second. It's a highly effective tool and it will help you stop doing the things you've always done so that you can get out of a working style that's made you stuck and stop creating stress in your personal and professional life. So I hope that my experiences over the last 7 years have inspired you to make a shift in how you're working and how you're living. And so let me get out of the slideshow and I'll put that in the chat. And let me just throw that in the chat. And do we have time for any questions?
Yes, sure. We will open the time for questions. So please, if you have any question, please either you write it down in the chat box or you can ask for to talk in the mic if you like. So we can do both things. So anyhow, thank you so much, Marcy, for this fruitful session. I'm feeling the pain while you're talking. Each and every slide, I can feel the pain that many of us, especially in this very stressful world, is going to, especially in the previous 2-3 years, have been very stressful. Also with COVID-19 and all these circumstances around us, give us also more stress.
Yes, it's true. And it really doesn't have to stay that way. I'm proof positive and my clients are proof positive. It takes practice, but you can shift both your emotional habits and your practical daily habits of how you're working. So if that's it, I hope people will copy that link and sign up for it. And I hope that you all take care of yourselves today and don't work too long. It's the end of the day where you are. And tomorrow aim for an 8-hour day. That's my wish for you.
That's very good, actually. And I want to ask about one of the main purpose of this session that we are doing is to, it's like an eye opener, okay? Because many times we are stressed, we are in the circle, we cannot go out. But once we attend such sessions, we hear from you and look at what are the symptoms, what are the causes, and then what are the solution strategies that you have recommended, and with tools as well. So this helps us to have more opinion. How can we reduce stress and improve productivity and improve our focus?
And, good. Let me, oh, sorry. I have to go because I have another call, but I'd like to very quickly answer. Batul asked what's the method you can follow if the CEO spends more time for the meeting to extend it for 2 to 3 hours. So before you go into every meeting, you should have an agenda and you should have a very clear idea what that meeting is going to accomplish. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't who are running the meetings, but you can still go in with a clear idea of that. As that time extends, whether they're focusing on that or not, then what I do is it's out of your control, right? So you just have to control your own attitude about it and shift what you had to do to another day that got taken up by that time. I used to tell my boss, look, here are my projects for the day. Here's my one most important thing. Now you want to add something else to that list. That's fine. I'm happy to do that. That's a priority. What do you want me to take off my list now that you've added that? Because I can't do them all. I work a limited time. And so Batul, the same thing can apply, that if the meeting extends and still with the CEO, but in general, just take what was on your list and move it to the next day and reprioritize. So I hope that helps. And
yes, thank you so much.
All right, I must go. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. Our pleasure to have you with us, and we'll send the link for your for the YouTube inshallah channel later after we upload it. Thank you so much. Great pleasure to have you with us. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye bye.